Dear viewer of Salam TV, we want to always appreciate you for being part of Salam TV viewership. Welcome to today's episode of the Alhidaayah show. My name is Muhammad Sekarala, your host for the show, and today is the 3rd of December. The year is 2024. Meaning we only have a few days to the end of the year. Those who have had achievements, successes, we pray that Allah continues blessing you in your achievements, and those that still have challenges, we pray that Allah alleviates them for you. In the Monday episodes, we always look at science and what Islam says about science and this bearing or impact of science in our lives as Muslims. So of late we are running episodes on preachers that Allah has mentioned to us in the Holy Quran. Of course, those that have attended school, especially science and biology classes, and physics, chemistry, most of the things we are talking about, you could have seen them or learned about them. But ours is to provide a perspective for you to better appreciate it in the context of as a Muslim, you appreciate that these are what some of the creations of Allah, and then there are lessons for us to draw from them. Now, today, we want to look at something that we interact with almost on a daily basis, which are insects that if they caused trouble to you, you lose sleep in the night, and when you get infected with the disease that they cause, you spend some time off in the hospital, and plus so many other things that come with them. And incidentally, as I was reading about these creatures we're going to look at, they are also important in the ecosystem that Allah has created, in that they are food to some other creatures. So you can imagine if they were not there and you want to eliminate all of them because they are dangerous, then there's something also distorting the process. These creatures we are talking about, as displayed on the screen, are the mosquitoes. We hope you know what mosquitoes are, and everyone knows what a mosquito is. So inshallah, to help us understand them in a context that we want to appreciate as Muslims, we are joined by our guest, Mr. Hamza Sekalema, whom I'm going to request to say salam to you, and then we proceed afterwards. Most welcome.
Now, our dear viewers, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us guidance and for allowing us to be here to contemplate about His creation and the signs that He has put within the Quran. Remember, our theme is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not put the details of Salah within the Quran, but He mentioned some names of creatures and some names of individuals. It means each and everything that you see mentioned is more critical to the guidance of the Muslim than the details of Salah. So whenever you find anything mentioned, you don't just brush over it, contemplate, do some digging, and you'll be able to see that indeed this thing deserved the mention within the final revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Thank you very much. So viewer, that is our guest for you, Mr. Hamza Sekalema. Reminder is that he's a lecturer at the Islamic University in Uganda. Computer science is his specialty and field. So if you have missed out on the earlier episodes, kindly go to the Salam YouTube page, type in Alhidaayah, and then you'll be able to revisit the creatures you have seen in the past. So Mr. Hamza, for starters, I wouldn't ask you to define what a mosquito is, or because everyone knows what a mosquito is. But normally we have interesting facts about the mosquitoes.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, we may want to start with those and then how to proceed.
Okay, we start of course with the mention of where is this mosquito actually mentioned within the Quran.
Yes, please.
That is Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Baqarah is the second chapter of the Quran, and it's called Surah Al-Baqarah because within it there is a story about the calf or the cow that the Banu Israel were ordered to slaughter. So it was given that name. So in the 26th verse says, "Ba'da billahi minash shaitanir rajim, inna Allaha la yastahi an yadriba mathalan ma ba'udatan fama fawqaha." فأما الذين آمنوا فيعلمون أنه الحق من ربهم وأما الذين كفروا فيقولون ماذا أراد الله بهذا مثلا يضل به كثيرا ويهدي به كثيرا وما يضل به إلا الفاسقين. وصدق Allah. Now, in this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Inna Allah, verily, or without any doubt, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not feel any shame or any shyness, la yastahi, and yadriba mathalan, to make an example or to narrate a parable, ma ba'udatan, fama fawqaha, about the mosquito or anything that is smaller even. Meaning the mosquito is not the smallest creature, it has other things that is bigger than. So Allah is giving us an indication that I can give a parable or an example of anything, including what you minimize as a mosquito, or even something smaller. Then he made something of a declaration that we should be careful about. He says, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, for those that believe, the people that have iman in their heart, فَيَقُولُونَ, they simply say, أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ, they say, verily this is something true from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what we are doing here. We find something mentioned within the Quran, we do some digging, and out of it we are able to discover and say, wallahi, this is something that Allah has mentioned and it deserves mention truly. فَيَقُولُونَ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ مِنْ رَبِّهِمْ. But وَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا, and for those that disbelieve, فَيَقُولُونَ مَاذَا أَرَادَ اللَّهُ
Why would Allah waste time mentioning?
What does Allah look for in this kind of narration? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is concluding by saying that by giving these kinds of simple parables, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will unguide some people and he will guide others. But he only unguides those that are fasiqun, people that look out for only mischief.
Various people.
So he mentioned the mosquito particularly. But all that or something less, but we are focusing on the mosquito. And a few facts about this mosquito. By the way, we may have to reflect again on that verse in Surah Al-Insan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that halata al-insan hinu min ad-dahri lam yakun shay'an madhkura. Every creature we have so far covered here is far older than the human beings in terms of the years that we have spent here on earth. Human beings are not even beyond 300,000 years, not even yet 1 million. But imagine this mosquito has been around on earth for between 50 and 100 million years. That is something that we should appreciate. Small, seemingly weak, but it has been around for way a greater period than we human beings. And unfortunately, we human beings are busy destroying the planet. If we continue along the current trajectory, the planet will not be habitable in the next maybe 1,000 years, the way we are destroying it. But these creatures have been on this planet for years and years, 50 to 100 million for the mosquito. The same mosquito exists in all parts of the world. The only places where you will not find it is Antarctica, that extremely cold part within the south, actually. Even the Arctic, they are possibly there. It is only Antarctica, that massive, permanently frozen piece of land, that the mosquito will not be there. Otherwise, anywhere you go to on this earth, you will find the mosquito there. And to beat all those differences in environment, it has 3,500 different species. And they are saying each of these species is specially adapted to deal with the situation where the mosquito is staying. If it is in the temperate lands, it will not resemble the one that is in the tropics and etc. So that is how, interestingly, this mosquito... It reminds me,
they always say that the malaria in sub-Saharan Africa is called tropical.
Because it is not the same as what exists in other places. So that is another interesting thing about this mosquito.
Wow. Yes.
The next fact, small as the mosquito may appear, this mosquito is the deadliest animal on earth. It causes more human death than any other creature that exists on earth.
Subhanallah. Small as it is, but the deadliest.
And for us here in Uganda, we only know of malaria. But there is a whole variety of diseases that this mosquito causes. We shall possibly look at them a bit.
So it is the deadliest vector we know.
Killer, not the snakes that you see,
Not the lions.
not these lions that appear very dangerous. That mosquito you are seeing there causes far more death by spreading diseases than any other creature that we have on earth. And we should be very careful. And unfortunately for countries like Uganda, we still suffer from the basic effects of the mosquito. You'll find malaria still killing people up to now. Yet there are already existing drugs. It's not some incurable disease. But to this day, people have a very interesting attitude against malaria. The mosquito is there for those who, of course, we usually see it. But if you can see, the thing resembles just some very weak, but that is the greatest killer of humanity. It will simply come and do something to you, put disease into you. And here we have that attitude of just ignoring malaria. When a person is told that they have malaria, they don't even get any concern at all.
Yes.
A person would have far more fear for HIV or any of these other diseases compared to malaria. Yet malaria is the greatest killer. It kills very many people possibly because they underlook it. They see it as a normal day-to-day disease, but it causes major effect to the body, and very many people die out of it. Then the other interesting fact is that only the female mosquitoes bite the human beings or other creatures. Now there's something which we need to note about the verse where Allah talked about this mosquito. You see, Allah talked about the mosquito. He called it Ba'udatan,
which is also a feminine description.
Now Ba'udatan is essentially a feminine attachment. It's not a masculine. And of course, since it's Ba'udatan, the other one becomes Fama Faukaha and below it. So from the fact that the female mosquitoes are the ones that come to bite us, it means our concern as human beings is mainly with the female mosquitoes.
We used to learn in primary, female Anopheles mosquito.
It is meaning you can see that that particular species is the one responsible for malaria, but the others. So only the female ones will come and bite you. And they don't come to bite you for fun. You see, we human beings are the only irresponsible creatures that kill others without a reason, without fun. We cause injury to others just for fun. For the creatures, they are not designed to cause injury or to attack anything just for fun. We don't have that kind of creature. However little-minded it may appear, whenever it attacks you, either
it has a natural order to
either it is looking for food or it is protecting itself against you. So even those snakes that you see biting, they only attack when they are either defending themselves. And for the human beings, the snake does not consider you to be food, so it will only attack you in case it perceives you to be a threat. That's why, interestingly, if you stand still, the snake may actually bypass you without even identifying that you are a threat. You just look like a paw and it will go by. It doesn't have any concern against you. So the female mosquitoes bite you because they need that blood. They are the only ones that need that blood, largely for their reproductive purposes.
Yeah,
the
so
male ones,
they need our blood for reproduction.
For reproduction mainly. They use it to feed. I think they are in they are in small.
Because you'd wonder why would you find this mosquito's belly with a lot of blood and it seems to be of no use to
all of that is just to feed during that process of reproduction.
So it is the females
the
that
ones
bite.
are the ones that we are really concerned with, because they're the ones that bite us and cause all this chaos. Now that bite of the mosquito is something that we need to also talk about. Now remember, the mosquito is particularly looking for blood within that bite. So scientists have studied in detail how these mosquitoes actually operate. So what it does, it scans around your skin for places that have a high probability of having blood closer to the surface. It is said that they monitor some kind of sugars that exist on the body that easily mean that there is a blood vessel just below the skin.
Oh, wow.
Then what it does next is very interesting. Remember that pinch that it does is actually painful.
Of course.
But it begins by spitting some small saliva in that place where it's going to bite. So the saliva numbs that place. It disables the sensory element within the skin in that area.
Oh, wow.
So the mosquito will now proceed and enter its proboscis. It's called a proboscis, some small tube that it inserts into your skin. Then it begins to look for the blood vessels. Once it identifies the blood vessel, it penetrates the blood vessel and spits some saliva there also to prevent the blood from clotting. Because you know the body's response is to automatically clot blood whenever there is an opening.
Yes, yes.
Meaning if these mosquitoes didn't have that capacity to prevent clotting, whenever it would make a penetration, the blood would clot immediately and it would not be able to feed. So it spits there some saliva and it now pulls out the blood without that blood clotting. Now imagine all that very complicated process, and the person comes and she shamelessly claims that all of this came out of chance. You see the mosquito, it started living with human beings, then it realized that it has to take their blood. This is kind of very unscientific and nonsense assertions that exist within our world. But principally, once it spits there, it pulls the blood until it fills its small belly, then it pulls out and goes. Now, once it pulls out,
you make that point and then you go for a break.
That's when the human being now senses that
something was
what
here.
is this?
So ours is to respond post-mortem.
Yes, because it begins by sucking your blood, then you realize.
So meaning by the time I remember to hit it, it is in the process of concluding to go.
The other reason why you feel that pain, because remember that the mosquito begins by putting some saliva that numbs that area. You are not supposed to feel any pain.
Okay.
But the body has a very rapid automatic response to foreign things entering it. So this saliva that this mosquito spits around is what the body responds to very fast by sending soldiers to deal with that particular foreign body, work on it and exit it. It sends a fluid and it's what removes the effect of that. So the swelling that you see for that portion where the mosquito has bitten is because the body is responding to the foreign matter which this mosquito has inserted. It puts its saliva in there. And that exchange of saliva, it is where the mosquito ends up infecting you with the disease. But the mosquito does not come carrying some malaria and intentionally puts it into you. For it, it's simply spitting around, and in the process, you get your malaria parasites.
Inshallah, we shall be expounding further on that aspect of carrying the disease when we return from the short break. Dear viewer, this is the Alhidaayah show. We look at
Salam.
We're looking at mosquitoes as a special creature that is mentioned in the Holy Quran. We'll be returning after this short break. Please don't go away.
Salam TV.
Let's live it up and party and have cracking good fun. When it comes to entertainment, DSTV's number one.
Is everybody ready to go, go, go?
We've got the zaniest characters to transport you away. The party is cracking, so why not come play? You're gonna love it. We've got so many channels and a ton of new shows, like Disney and Nickelodeon, where anything goes. So live it up with DSTV. We bring the fun. You know we're number one.
I'm one of the scientists now doing research on plastic technology recycling. where we can be able to produce other products from plastic waste. For example, we are trying to develop a plastic tile with sand plastic tile, that it is unbreakable, it can be shifted from one roof to another. So this is a project we are working on. It's our initiative as Kazire Group of trying to reduce waste from the environment. Brothers and sisters, Taso Butonde for a better Uganda.
This message is brought to you by National Environment Management Authority, Kampala Capital City Authority, Vivo Energy, Airco, Pepsi, Stanbic Bank and NBS TV.
Salaamu egabudde oli munna bizinesi oba olina ekitongole ekiwa obuweereza obw'enjawulo nga weetaaga kimanyike mu buli maka mu ggwanga lyonna. Salaamu TV ekuleetedde enteekateeka ya Salaamu egabudde. Guno gwe mukisa gw'ofunye by'otunda ne by'okola birangibwe ku TV yaffe eŋŋanzi wamu n'emikutu gyaffe emigatta abantu gyonna. Weegatte ku bukadde n'obukadde bw'abalabi baffe okwetooloola Uganda yonna, era bizinesi yo yeeyongera okumanyika nga bw'onyumirwa emiwendo egisaliddwako osobola okuganyulwa okwannamaddala mu kulangako. Tusuba omukisa ssemakisa guno ogukuweereddwa. Okumanya ebisingawo tukubireko leero ku 0705 54 76 09 oba 0783 27 21 34. Salaamu egabudde ku Salaamu TV, olutimbero olw'emirembe.
Okulinnyisa omutindo gwa Afromobile. Eno y'engeri gy'oyinza okuzza obuggya omutindo gwa Afromobile yo. Funa app ya Afromobile okuva ku mukutu gwa Google Store oba App Store oba ku mutimbagano gwa www.afromobile.com. Londako forgotten password. Tekamu akaunti yo eya Afromobile oze buggya pin code yo. Ojja kufuna obubaka ku email yo okuli ne code empya. Bw'oteekamu code eyo olwo pin yo empya ekkirizibwe. Afromobile, emboozi za Africa ezannamaddala.
Eno ye Salam TV.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear viewer of Salam TV, we want to continue appreciating you so much for keeping it Salam. This is your favorite Monday show, the Alhidaayah show, where we look at Islam and science. Today is the 3rd of December 2025, beg your pardon. In case you're just joining us, we are here every Monday from 3 to 4 o'clock and we look at Islam and science. Of late, we are looking at creatures that Allah has made mention of in the Holy Quran for us to reflect upon, appreciate, and become better worshippers and servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So before we went in for the break, we were looking at some of the interesting facts about mosquitoes, and from the discussion from the insights that our guests have shared with us, you can see that one, Allah in the Holy Quran mentions about the mosquito in Surah Baqarah chapter 2 verse 26 in a feminine aspect, in a lady format, because largely it is the female mosquitoes that do the biting and spreading of diseases. Number 2 is the process in which these mosquitoes go through to get the blood from us. I was sharing with our guests in the break that to the medical doctors, if you can see the process through which these mosquitoes they spit saliva, then they are going to suck the blood out from you, and then you only realize when they are done. It's the same, almost the same way the doctors, when you go for a blood test, or in the past we used to have injections. Of late they have reduced. Now we are using cannulas, but they are going to apply some spirit. I don't know what that liquid is, or it is a spirit. Then they will get some cotton wool, pass around you, and then they will take that blood away from you. So you can see, we might rightly say that the scientists, the doctors, the whole process of managing patients, of taking blood samples, perhaps someone could have made an observation of how these mosquitoes go about with their business of sucking blood, and could have informed the medical profession. Maybe they will guide us from the history of medicine. We shall be think we shall get the opportunity to invite one of the doctors to tell us how the history of medical treatment could have come in. But as a way of reflection, we need to appreciate that mosquitoes are a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whatever they are doing, you can see the systematic, well-established order that they are supposed to follow. So, Mr. Hamza, as we come into the second part of the show, apart from those facts you shared in the first part, do we have more facts that the viewers should abreast themselves with?
Now, the other interesting aspect about this mosquito here is that female mosquito can carry, or it can take up to 3 times its weight in terms of blood. So meaning, if an average human being is 60 kgs, it means you would need to take up to 180 kgs of either a drink or etc. within your belly in order to compete with the mosquito. 3 times its weight it can be able to carry.
So its average weight, it's a very tiny thing. You don't know whether it even has grams.
So maybe it is less than a gram or half a gram, but it will carry 3 times that weight.
It has the capacity of carrying 3 times that weight.
Its normal weight in terms of blood. So that's why you find sometimes when you squash it, you'll find really a big amount of blood that it has carried, and that is what it is.
Okay.
Now, the other fact about this mosquito, you hear that the mosquito makes a certain sound when moving around. Now, a person may think that the mosquito is actually making that buzz by producing a sound, but the problem is it comes from its wings. It's recorded that the mosquito is able to move its wing between 300 and 600 times per second. Wow. Now, that frequency, I don't think there are any other creatures. Maybe the hummingbird could be coming a bit closer to that. Between 300 and 600 times in a single second.
Yes.
No wonder it's able to generate that sound that you can be able to hear, that buzzing sound that the mosquito makes. It is because of the very fast way in which the wings move.
By the way, growing up, we used to be told that mosquitoes love our ears so much because it is where a lot of blood is concentrated. Is this the case? Because
yeah, I think the ears do have a lot of blood vessels in them. So a mosquito would not struggle too much in case it landed around here, because there are places where the vessels are a bit deep and they would require a lot of effort. And for it just wants the shortest way to get to the blood. Its focus is the blood. Okay. So up to between 300 and 600 times in a single second is the speed at which this small creature you are seeing can be able to move its wing. No wonder it generates that sound. Lifespan, the females can live between 2 to 3 weeks.
2 to 3 weeks.
So the female ones tend to live a bit longer, maybe because they are the mama. So they are able to, Allah has given them a mandate of living longer. The male, 10 days.
10 days.
Meaning the judge of the mosquitoes that will tell you what used to happen in the past is just
10 days.
10 days.
Oh, wow.
So within 10 days, the male is gone.
So
the female will proceed for the next 21 days.
Don't have an external force that didn't by 10 days.
They will die within the 10 days, just like the way we human beings die just naturally when we clock your 9, 7, 6, 10. That's the way the body will have essentially been decapacitated and the creature dies. But you can see that some of these creatures, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also limited their life, partially to protect us from them. Imagine if mosquitoes also used to be around for like a year or so, there would be a lot of chaos. You imagine they just last 3 weeks, because we know that the female are the ones that cause chaos to our lives. But still, you can see they cause a lot of danger. But Allah has limited their lifespan, with the male having a far shorter lifespan than that of the female. Now,
maybe as we prepare to have other facts or details, talk to us on the issue. You said the female mosquito does not cause infection because of as its own cause, but its work is to carry from one source to another. One time we were with someone and we were asking, why don't you sleep under a mosquito net? And we were saying, amongst us here, there is no sick person. If I was in Mulago Hospital, where I know there are malaria patients, I would fear for my health. But looking at everyone here, we all seem to be normal. Was that a good argument to make?
That one is an unserious argument because you don't know where the mosquito is coming from. I think people look at the mosquito and they think that it only travels maybe like a very
distance, yes.
These mosquitoes can travel for extremely long periods. So don't deceive yourself that the one you are seeing is from the nearby pond. It could have come from a far off location because you see those mosquitoes have the capacity to detect temperature variation, because you'll wonder, mosquitoes could be existing in a forest.
Yes.
Then you come as a totally new entity into the forest. But within a very short time, you'll find they have identified you. Even if you came in a very quiet way, you didn't make any noise, they will still identify you and come and bite you. So they do so by having a very sensitive temperature sensor, and also they are able to detect carbon dioxide that we breathe. So the moment you come into their environment and you start breathing your carbon dioxide, these very tiny mosquitoes are able to identify that there is some temperature variation coming from point X, and they come and identify and essentially pick you. Then remember we said they exist in every temperature area.
Yes.
And they are telling us that they also do hibernation. Remember we saw hibernation under the bears. Did we see bears?
No, not yet.
I think we saw them. There's a creature which hibernates that we saw. We saw the bears. So those creatures hibernate. Once the temperature falls below what is acceptable, the mosquitoes are also capable of going into hibernation. So they simply stop whatever activity and go into limbo until the temperature rises a little bit. So all animals that are able to do that, they will survive with a cold environment without necessarily having to suffer the cold. They simply go into a dormant state, wait out the bad weather, and when the good weather returns, they are back to a good way. Now,
so I don't know if we shall get opportunity to look at the other types of mosquitoes, because the one you're talking about is malaria causing. But there's one we were told causes yellow fever.
There are quite a number of fevers. Actually, let's just look also at those fevers.
Yeah, because
so they are saying these mosquitoes are essentially disease vectors.
Yes.
They are known to spread one, malaria, which is the most common. There's what is called dengue fever. Dengue, D-E-N-G-U-E fever. They also spread the Zika virus. That one is a viral disease. They also spread West Nile virus. They also spread yellow fever. So those, that variety, and all of these are very terrible fevers. Here in Uganda we don't have this dengue, but when I had a chance to do some study in Bangladesh, which is an Asian country. So when we went there, one of our colleagues got sick and it appeared like malaria. But they told us, here we don't have malaria. So we were very sure it must be malaria. But they told us for them what they usually suffer in case of mosquito bites is this dengue fever. And it also causes major distortion to the body, but it's not as dangerous as malaria, because malaria is the biggest killer. Here they are giving us statistics that up to 700,000 people die in Africa every year.
From malaria?
From malaria alone, you imagine. Nearly 1 million people being killed by this malaria.
Okay. I want to, as we are running out of time. I want you to help us, especially this yellow fever. In the past few months, there was a mass immunization campaign that was rolled out. No, it was vaccination, not immunization.
Vaccination. I think it's the
fever.
same thing.
And then,
vaccination and immunization.
today, before you cross, or you board an airplane, you have to present a yellow fever book. So I think we need, our viewers will need to appreciate when they talk about this yellow fever thing. Or how deadly is it, and since we are looking at mosquitoes, first that we Ugandans and Africans here we have a passive kind of response to some of the issues that are normally done. Perhaps through this episode, we could help them appreciate when you talk about yellow fever what it is. And,
now, yellow fever.
Yes.
Is also spread by these mosquitoes, so essentially it's a fever.
Okay.
So they are saying here that it has a fatality rate of around between 20 and 60%, meaning if it got like 100 people, you'd find some 20 possibly dying out of it, or the figure may go up to 60. So it means it's really something also dangerous, which is something that we should be aware of. Then globally, it has a far smaller number compared to malaria. Between 200,000 people die out of this yellow fever every year. And I think why the international travel system is particularly worried about this yellow fever, is that just as you saw COVID, it is easy for one to move around with it. You know, most countries don't do curative healthcare like what we do here in Uganda.
Yes,
okay, we do some prevention, but you see that the majority of investment in Uganda is on drugs to cure the diseases. But that's a very expensive way of running a health system. For many countries, what they do, they simply fight these diseases until they have nowhere to live. If it is malaria, you simply eliminate all the places where the mosquitoes could be. And in that case, you are done with that disease just by fighting off the vector. So that is one way in which they do it. So when you have a dangerous disease like yellow fever that can easily be transported around by people moving around or on airlines or any other means of travel, the only way to avoid having this disease spread around is by insisting on immunization. So it is part of the international travel policy. You'll find it. One time I made a mistake of going to some country about it, and its immunization system is very clear. Once they immunize you, they quarantine you for observation for 6 days, meaning you'll end up again wasting a lot of your time in that country. But alhamdulillah, I was able to recover my card, so they released me.
So that's after 6 days?
It was within that same day I was able to communicate to my colleagues, and I was able to recover my card.
So how deadly is this yellow fever, I think, compared to the normal malaria?
And you can see the ratios. Malaria is like 3 or 4 times more deadly, but the symptoms are essentially like the same. They are saying here, fever, muscle pain, just the same thing like what we know for malaria. Headache, loss of appetite, nausea and vomiting. And in some severe cases, the eyes and the skin will become yellow. So in that case, those are some of the last signs. Then you have some dark urine, abdominal pain, and in some cases you even end up bleeding altogether. So these are all symptoms, and you can see they share really a lot with the malaria. And malaria is far more dangerous because it kills nearly a whole million of people every year, and it has maintained that record for all these years. A lot of investment has been done. The UN even has a dedicated fund, global fund against malaria and tuberculosis, but you find malaria still continues to kill very many people, especially in the African region, given that we don't do enough to prevent it.
Okay. I don't know the time will allow. This elephantiasis, is it also one of the diseases
that are caused? I don't know.
I remember it used to be, is it tiger head mosquito? But I think that one we can have it another day. We have a few minutes to go. I want you to talk to us some of the
Now, the funny thing,
Yes.
the mosquitoes, we said they don't need that blood for themselves.
Yeah.
It is for reproduction. It is
Okay.
for feeding there. But for them, what they feed on nectar,
Nectar.
fruit juice.
Oh, wow.
You see, they are not really interested in your blood. They have nothing to do with it.
Oh.
They say mosquito eggs can dry out for up to 8 months and still hatch. You imagine that survivability, meaning even if it stays around for 8 months, it will still be there.
Okay.
And
Now, we know we've been taught the best ways to prevent and prevent mosquitoes from either breeding in areas, one of which. But I want you to balance that with the fact that is it possible to completely eliminate mosquitoes from the environment, and what harm, what danger would come to us if we completely eliminate it? Because I remember in the year 2011 or 12, there was a very big debate on DDT.
I remember.
DDT mosquitoes.
But was it for mosquitoes or it had been brought against this water hyacinth?
It was mosquitoes, because I remember they wanted to have a permanent solution to malaria, and there was a very big plan. People were saying you cannot that DDT is equally harmful to human beings and the rest. So, is it possible for us to completely eliminate them, or is there a necessary evil that we must
now you realize
adapt to live with?
Now you realize that the DDT was against the water hyacinth. It was not mosquitoes.
Okay,
Mosquitoes,
yes.
the government policy has always been mosquito net. Now, one thing we should realize that every creature that you see in this world,
Yes.
it has a purpose.
Okay.
We only remove them from our habitat to protect ourselves, but not eliminating them from
Completely.
the entire ecosystem, because every creature you are seeing moving on this earth,
Yes.
it is not just playing around. Allah has kept that creature for 100 million years. It's
Yes.
not a useless
It's not a
thing.
useless thing.
It's human beings that are causing all this devastation of other creatures. Otherwise, principally, every creature that exists has a certain purpose that it fulfills within the large complex cycle that Allah has put in this world.
Yes.
But we need to ensure that the creatures exist without harming us. So for the Muslim or any person of responsibility, you don't allow mosquitoes to breed within your immediate area by eliminating stagnant water. Because
yes.
when the water is moving, the mosquito does not lay the
Clearing
eggs
bushes
there.
around.
It mainly deals with the bushy places and places with the stagnant water. Those are its main areas. So you need to eliminate those ones. Once those are out of the window, the rest is fine.
Okay.
There are also mosquito repellent gadgets nowadays that are based on electricity. For me, I think those are the very best, because you see, the problem with the nets is that you spend the entire day in the sitting room and other public places within your home, and you only go to sleep for just very few hours within the day. And there is no rule that says that mosquitoes only exist in the bedroom. So as you are in this space where you are,
living
the
room, the
mosquitoes are
kitchen.
busy biting you.
Yes.
So the net it just reduces. But once you are existing in that house and there is no repellent around, the mosquitoes will still bite you before you leave the sitting room. And by the time you go to the bedroom, there is even no need for any further biting. You've already got your dose and you get sick. That's why you find people already have the nets, but they still get the malaria, mainly because of that exposure that comes before you go to bed. So the repellents, especially the ones that are electricity based, they put out some material within the air that totally repels. So across the entire house, you put those repellents, and they should be able to help. Of course, they are more expensive, and for the time being, the minimum is to have a net. But in case you are having only the net, you still stand a very high chance. Possibly that's why we are not seeing any reduction in the number of people dying here in Africa, because the solution that we are having is very limited. It only works for a small part of the day, yet this person exists within the environment of the mosquitoes for a large part of the day.
These mosquitoes are nocturnals. Their business large in the night.
Yes, but even in the night, at what time do we sleep? And with the television, Ugandans sleep at 1 a.m. and so you'll find that we expose ourselves to a lot of
problems. So in other words, the repellent should be the way to go because it is impossible to completely eliminate them.
Or you can do a merger of both. You buy one repellent for the common room, which is the sitting room. Then for the bedrooms, as long as you have your net, there should be no problem.
There was one that was being advertised on the television, said, is it Odomos? You smear the whole of it and you sit there and no mosquito will come.
Okay, there are those that require smearing with the body. But the other one is very good. You just put it within the electrical system and it will begin to spread some chemical around and you're good to go.
Do we have any 1 or 2 lessons for Muslim, especially patients?
Now, for us, we should remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned the mosquito by its name within the Quran. And we have given our introduction by saying if Allah didn't mention the details of Salah, like when do we pray, how many rakats, He left that for the hadiths of the Prophet. And He talked about the mosquito. You should therefore know that for purposes of you being guided, contemplating about the mosquito and its various elements is something that will generate far more guidance than the details of how to pray and that's how Allah has balanced His religion. So whenever you see any creature that Allah has mentioned, know that at the back there are some very amazing features like what we have seen for this mosquito. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we ask Him to guide us and to keep us among those who contemplate, because this ibadah of tadabbur is interestingly performed by some other non-Muslim religious people like the Buddhists and mainly the Buddhists. They go into a secluded place and they begin to think of their environment, and they say this is supposed to be actually a common practice for the Muslims, because for us we have been even ordered. Allah is asking, don't they contemplate? So contemplation, which is tadabbur, is part of the definition of a Muslim. And if you merge it with all the discoveries, the information is really all over the place. You would find yourself standing firm as a Muslim and being guided and not even waiting to be scared with the Jahannam or any other thing. You simply appreciate that wallahi, all these designs cannot be an empty thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists and we should worship Him. Those are the two simple things that will benefit out from this.
We can never go beyond the discussion. That important to note, suffice to notice that mosquitoes are part of the natural system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do not take on any very harsh or what you'd call so destructive mechanisms to eliminate mosquitoes. Indirectly, you also be eliminating yourself. Secondly, know that mosquitoes have a lot of good. Apart from causing disease, they are food to other creatures. And second, they also help us to appreciate that it is Allah who determines who should have good health, and plus so many other things that would learn from the mosquitoes. So let's learn how to live within the guidance of the medical or the health workers. Let's eliminate those breeding areas of mosquitoes, but of course in the natural way that we have been taught. We want to thank you again so much for being part of the show, and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides us based on the information that we have all listened to today and viewed in the course of the show. Till next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Eno, yes, Salam TV.